Everyone, thank you for joining us for our Wellbeing Week. This week in particular, we are focusing on well-being at the Chamber. We're focusing on individuals rather than just the business side of things. So we have a number of workshops lined up for our members to take part. And today we're focusing on workplace well-being. So I'd like to welcome very much to the panel today. We have Daniel McDermott, who is the Health Team Leader at Sevenoaks District Council. And Daniel's going to be talking to us about 5 ways to well-being. We also have Dan Tilley, who is from Health Tribe, who is going to be talking about recognising and prioritising our well-being. And also Michelle Saunders from Kent, you're from Kent and Medway Workplace Wellbeing. Sorry, a bit of a mouthful, Michelle, who's going to talk about their really great Wellbeing Award that is taking part, really inspirational project that they're doing. So if it's okay with everyone, if you wouldn't mind just muting yourselves for the main presentations. If you have any questions at all, please put on the chat room, and we're hoping at the end of the session that we'll have some time for just some general questions and answers and just a general chat about well-being. So over to you, Daniel.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. As mentioned, I'm Daniel McDermott. I'm the Health Team Leader at Sevenoaks District Council. And we look after our delivery of 1 new services within Sevenoaks, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about today. So let's get this presentation up. Can you all see that? Yes, I'll just go with thumbs up. Fantastic, thank you. So, okay, so what we're talking about today is lockdown isolation, the impact that lockdown has had on our mental health, and specifically I think the take-home message that we try and impart is that mental health is very similar to physical health, in the same way that physical health and mental health can be, at times it can be really positive, it can be really great, but there are also times where it can be unfortunately really poor, and it kind of lies that same way with physical health. So what we're trying to do really is alleviate or get rid of the stigma that surrounds mental health, and just think about it in the same way that we think about physical health. So what impacts our mental health? Well, mental well-being, sorry. There's lots of lifestyle factors that can influence mental well-being. Look at stress and anxiety, our relationships, and potentially our lack of relationships if we're struggling with social isolation. Money and work can also have a big impact on our mental well-being. Bereavement, change, fatigue, housing, lifestyle choice and health also come into play, and we'll be talking about those a little bit more. Now, thinking about this year in particular, 2020, it's been an incredibly challenging year for us all with COVID and the impact that's probably had on you guys, particularly with running your businesses throughout COVID. So I wonder how many of those elements on the left-hand side you might recognise as factors that have come into play this year in 2020 for yourselves. And unfortunately, what we know is that with regard to mental well-being, our sense of maybe feeling low or a little bit anxious, if left unchecked, poor mental well-being can actually have long-term implications on our mental health, can lead to the development of certain mental health conditions. So it's really something that we need to try and keep an eye on as best as possible, and look after as best as we can. So the first thing I wanted to present here is there's 5 tips, we call them the 5 ways to well-being, 5 factors that are evidence-based, that are known to have a positive impact on mental health and well-being. I'm going to go through them all briefly here. The first one we've got is connect. Connect is, as you can imagine, is about linking up with people. So connect with other people. You could take time out to be with a friend or family member, meet a colleague for a socially distanced lunch, or make use of video chat technology to stay in contact with friends and family. We know that connecting with people can really help improve our own mental well-being. being around to really listen to other people's needs as well. Being active, physical activity is known to have a neurochemical impact on our mental well-being and our mental health. Releases certain chemicals in the brain that actually improve our mood. So that could be as simple as a brisk walk for just 10 minutes can have an impact on our mental well-being. And it's although it's challenging, by planning time to be active within your day and having potentially your exercise equipment ready, it can make things easier to make an active choice every day. Taking notice is about paying attention and being in the present moment. So leaving work behind when you can and paying attention to the world around you, your thoughts, feelings, and body. So really trying to be in the present moment, potentially when you're out and about, and focusing on other things. That's taking notice. Keeping learning can give you a sense of purpose and improve your self-esteem. This could be a new hobby, cooking a new recipe, or starting a new DIY project, or even learning another language potentially for a higher educational course. And lastly, give is all about acts of kindness, which can improve our sense of self-worth and give us feelings of positivity. So even a small act of kindness can make a difference to that and help improve our mental well-being. And that could be as simple as giving time to a colleague or a friend or family member and really paying attention and listening to what they're saying, and acknowledging that you're paying attention to them. I'll give them the link down the bottom there, which gives more details on the 5 ways to well-being. So what else could you do to improve your own mental well-being? There are lots of tools out there and lots of advice on mental well-being and mental health. Specifically, what we would potentially direct you to is the Every Mind Matters content, which is listed on the One U website, One U National website, which again I've provided the link to just there. And there's some really interesting content specifically now around the impact of coronavirus and mental well-being, in addition to guidance on anxiety, low mood, stress, sleep, parenting, and youth mental well-being as well. In addition to that, on that same website, there is the Every Mind Matters plan. It's a really quick 5-question quiz, but as a result of completing that quiz, it gives you some tailored responses on what you potentially do, what changes you could make to your own lifestyle in order to have a positive impact on your mental health and well-being. So those are just a couple of things that we've kind of highlighted there that are resources that you could use yourself to improve your own mental well-being. There are services in Kent that we wanted to focus on as well, which are available to you if you potentially feel that you'd like to have a chat with someone about your mental health or mental well-being. So here we go. Who can help me? We've got details there about a service which is Release the Pressure. It's referred to. It's run by Mental Health Matters, I believe. It's a 24/7 telephone support line. You can text the word Kent to the number there, 85258, or ring the telephone number that's listed on the page there. They have trained counsellors available to offer free support on any of the following kind of mental health related issues, and there's further information on the website. Potentially ringing someone, having a telephone chat with someone might not be, you might not feel too comfortable with that, and that's fine. On the Mental Health Matters website, there is actually a helpline web chat function. So maybe you don't really feel like you want to have a telephone chat with someone, that's fine. You can actually just have a simple online web chat with those same trained professionals. Those are 2 really good services if you're looking for a bit of remote support and maybe a feeling that your mental health isn't really where you want it to be right now, and you'd like to talk those problems through a little bit. Another service that we think is particularly good is Live Well Kent. They provide a range of different services and are all local, which can include things like talking therapies, life skills courses, group activities, support groups for specific mental health conditions, employment and volunteering, and housing support. all things that can have a massive impact on our mental health. And the details for accessing those services are just listed there as well. You can self-refer via the website. There's a self-referral form, or there's an email option or telephone-based support option as well. A few good options there in the local area of local support available to help with mental health and wellbeing. We talked about earlier that the things that can impact on mental well-being, and one of the things that we listed there was lifestyle choices and health. The things that we know that can impact on mental well-being could include things like smoking, alcohol consumption, physical activity, and diet and weight. Now, I was quite surprised with some of these, so I did a little bit of research myself, and interestingly, although particularly with smoking, the research suggests that there is somewhat of a relaxing effect a smoker has when having a cigarette. That effect is actually very temporary, and the evidence shows that smoking actually increases anxiety and tension due to the associated withdrawal symptoms. So although you get a small sense of relaxation from adopting that behaviour, in the long term it actually increases anxiety and tension. And doesn't actually deal with the underlying cause of the anxiety. In addition to that, smokers smoking is twice as high in adults with depression in comparison to those without smoking. So what we kind of feel from the evidence here is that potentially smoking may be a temporary mask for potentially a much more serious mental health condition. We know that alcohol is a depressant as a chemical, so it has a relaxing or numbing effect when we're adopting that behaviour. But again, long-term increases our risk of depression and anxiety. Physical activity is an amazing treatment for mental health. We know that people who do regular physical activity have a 30% lower risk of depression and dementia than people who don't adopt a physical activity in their lifestyle. And we also know that depression is more common in people who are obese, although the relationship between depression and obesity and mental health is a little bit more unknown. So what we're trying to say here is that these behaviours they're linked to mental health, linked to mental well-being, and it's something that potentially is another positive step that you could do for yourself in order to have that would have a contribution towards your own mental health and well-being. And what we've quoted there, around 40% of deaths in England are related to our behaviour and the choices we make every day. Most common and harmful diseases include cancer, heart disease, stroke, respiratory and liver disease, so as well as potentially contributing towards our mental health and well-being by adopting a positive behaviour set with those particular behaviours I've listed there. By adopting the positive behaviour, not smoking, not drinking too much, being physically active and adopting a healthy weight, hopefully what we see is an alleviation of our risk of those harmful behaviours. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to promote our When You Kent services, which are available to all Kent residents and offer support with making realistic changes to behaviour. We provide up to 12 months worth of support and stay in contact with you for up to 12 months and can help you with quitting smoking, losing weight, eating healthier, moving more and drinking less alcohol. And I provided the details there of how to register for that service, which is completely free of charge if you choose to. Again, perhaps accessing that kind of free professional support might not be for you. There are loads of self-help tools available for people to challenge some of these behaviours. So Active 10, Couch to 5K, really great tools for trying to increase the amount of physical activity we're doing. The NHS Smoke-Free app is a fantastic resource for trying to coach you through quitting smoking independently. Drink-Free Days is a really good resource for trying to encourage a reduction in alcohol consumption. And Easy Meals is a really good resource for adopting a healthier diet. There's over 150 recipes, easy to cook recipes, breakfast, lunch, dinner, that enable you to just have a recipe and plan, especially when you're busy, knowing that you've got a recipe ready to go and something you can follow quite easily. And lastly, the newest of the bunch is the Better Health 12-week NHS weight loss plan, which is an app designed to coach you through 12 weeks of support in order to encourage you to lose weight. And again, further information on living a healthy lifestyle can be found on the NHS 1U content and the NHS Better Health content, which is just available via the link I'll provide at the bottom of that slide. That is all from me at this stage. I think I'm handing over to Dan. Is it Dan Tiley, isn't it?
It's Tiley, yeah.
All right, Dan. I'm going to pull my slideshow down and then I'll hand over to you, Dan.
Thank you, Daniel. And just to remind everyone that if you have any questions, please do put them on the chat button. And what a lot of resources there are available. It's incredible, really, how much is available. So thanks for highlighting that. Dan, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Daniel. I love the fact that it's so accessible, because I think one of the barriers for a lot of people, like we talked about yesterday, is actually making that first step and being vulnerable and opening up to it. And the fact that you've got like online chats, I think is a great idea, because I think that would encourage people to actually take action. But so many resources. And it's interesting listening to you and some of the similarities to what I do. And I like the way you simplified it into categories. So moving on, moving and kind of complementing what you said, if you like. My background is a health and lifestyle coach. I work very holistically with people. So my natural way of working is to look at the bigger picture. And it's great now to see, if you like, the mainstream understanding the interconnectedness of our health. And I would go a step further to say that there is no separation between mental health and physical health and emotional health and spiritual health. They're actually one. And they're a little bit like a spider's web. If you tug on one side, then you're going to have an effect on the other side. So I think the progression from this is to actually see, from my perspective, that there isn't any difference between one type of health or another. It's just health and well-being. So I run a little studio down in Shoreham in Oxford, and I'm delighted to kind of run through some stuff on being a little bit more resilient and happy, because I believe that if you strip it all back and you ask most people, they just want to be happy. I actually struggled, as always, to try and condense it, because there's so much you can talk about, and you might have to kind of stop me if I go too far. Interestingly, and I'm sure you've kind of all experienced the current situation as a trying and testing situation, and I'd like to look at the experience as I do in most painful situations, because that's really what it is, whether it's physical, mental, emotional pain or discomfort. That actually maybe the most important thing is to look at how we perceive and interpret what's going on. And I think that pain is actually a teacher that kind of illuminates or awakens either us as a nation or us as individuals to highlight things that maybe need to change, that maybe we're unaware of. Because awareness is the first sort of point of any change or choice. Because what you don't know, and you can't really do anything about it. So I do believe that our situation in the moment is a positive thing. Although, struggling as a business, people not coming through the door, just like you guys, I'm sure. It's an uncertain time which can trigger the kind of reptilian security brain in us to panic and feel kind of insecure. What I wanted to talk about a little bit is actually what is health and well-being. And in my understanding of it is, and experience is, that health and well-being really is the ability to respond to any situation. And once we have our health and our well-being, we can then respond how we want to rather than react. And part of that starts with us. And Daniel talked about self-care. And my view would be to, as a coach, is to try and make sure that the priority is you initially. And as a business model and as a coaching model, one of the models that I adopt is I before we before all. So that's a very important part of the coaching model. If you look after your own needs, or you are aware of your own needs, firstly, then you have much more energy and resilience to be able to look after, say, your relationships, your colleagues, your family, your friends. Once you've developed you know your own needs and your own values, you can be a better husband, a better colleague. You're then influential to those people, which is we. Once you then develop that, then it's about looking after the all, which is community, the world, district, Kent, etc. So the important thing for my advice would be that the ability to understand your own needs, your I, is absolutely crucial. Because if you neglect your I or your own needs, then something burns out, something becomes painful, something becomes overwhelming. And that could be mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever. So it's just kind of drilling home the importance of the mentality, not selfishly, but to understand that you are the most important thing, because then you can respond and have more choice. So hopefully that's kind of like the first thing I wanted to talk about. Moving on from that, I was thinking, okay, how do I kind of break this down into giving some tips? Well, if awareness is the first element of change, then, and we don't know, you may be feeling stressed, or there may be overwhelmed, or not feeling so great about the situation, then surely the first point is, well, what can I do in order to create more awareness of my well-being and my health? And if I do that, then I have more choice to make any decisions and make better choices. So the first thing is, okay, how can I increase awareness? So things like understanding perhaps what our fundamental human needs are, and then maybe understanding where on those are most important for me. So there's 6 human needs that are fundamental to us, and we maybe have 1 or 2 that kind of drive us the most, and that's very individual. So if you bear in mind our situation at the moment, the first human need is certainty. So if that's your highest need at the moment, that's going to be a real struggle for you, because guess what? There's hardly any uncertainty going forward. Nobody really knows what's happening moving forward. Number 2, ironically, is uncertainty and variety. There are people out there who actually quite like this situation, believe it or not. They quite like the uncertainty, because it gives a sense of, an unknown, a stimulus, some joy. It's exciting. The third one is significance. So it's a kind of feeling unique, value, recognition, being needed, having independence. The fourth one, this is probably a big one at the moment, is connection and love. So connecting with others. The fifth is growth. So an expansion of capability to understand others. And then the 6th is contribution. So as Daniel touched on, the feeling to help somebody, to listen. So within that 6, where would you think your top 2 would be? And straight away, if we can understand, that's why I feel like this, and because I'm not connecting with others, and that's one of my highest kind of aspects or needs, then that's why I'm feeling disconnected. And what can I do about that? Or if it's certainty, well, okay, I can't control what's going on outside of us, but actually I can control my daily internal choices. I can control what the choices around my lifestyle and what I eat and how I move to a certain degree. So that would be it's a good tool I would recommend. Other tools are journaling. So when we talk about mental and emotional health, writing down, journaling, reviewing the day, asking yourself how I feel, stopping and understanding and having a quiet time to know that when I stop and just ask myself that question, how I feel emotionally, we might be so in our head with all the information and worries going on, we actually miss that. So those kind of things, food diaries, sleep diaries, digestion diaries, journaling, any kind of awareness tool like that gives us more of an indication of what may be missing, or maybe where our needs are not being met. Because as Daniel said, most issues like smoking and addictions are really unmet needs. And once we look after ourselves and we fulfill our own needs, then we tend to find we eat better, we move better, we're happier. So awareness for me is the key to any change and making a better, healthier choices. How are we doing with time? So moving on from that, well, it might be useful to understand what are the fundamental health and well-being needs that create balance in our kind of experience here. So the way my model that I work with clients is that there are 4 kind of internal doctors that we can all consult rather than going external. They're kind of metaphorical from like Hippocrates. He came up with 3, and there's actually a 4th that's been adding in the system that I use. So the first doctor, if you like, or if you want to call them your needs instead of doctors, is Dr. Happiness. What it maybe write down literally, which creates awareness. What are the things that create happiness and joy for me? So for me, I know that I need to compete at some level. So golf at the moment is a big thing for me. I know that the golf clubs are shut, but I've turned my trampoline up the other way up and I hit the ball into the trampoline. So creates happiness and joy for me, which is important. So Dr. Happiness is about fulfillment and happiness, mental and emotional well-being. Dr. Movement is about what type of movement we need on a daily basis in order to feel energized and feel whole. And that might be quiet movement, stretching, being in nature, strength and conditioning, sport. But Dr. Movement is also about movement of emotions and movement of expressing or creativity. So what are the things that allow me to create? So it could be painting, art, singing, dancing, etc. The third is Dr. Diet, so pretty self-explanatory, but working out, well, okay, food diary time, how am I fitted on that? And which foods do I do well on or not? And the 4th is Dr. Quiet, which is really key at the moment. Well, it's one of my beliefs, and I know we're kind of nearing time here, is that because of our era of information, is that we're constantly bombarded with information all the time, and that triggers thought, and then thought triggers emotion. So it can be terribly draining to have thinking all the time, because we go from one gadget to another problem solver, and that creates a distractive nature of what our human needs are. So we're in our heads, we think too much, and we lose the ability to feel. And when we ask ourselves how we feel, really that's the compass to make better choices which are aligned to our wellness. So based on that, it might be worth in those 4 doctors to understand maybe which doctor is priority for you. Is it happiness? Am I doing things that create happiness? Am I moving the right type of movement? What's my diet like? And am I finding times to myself to be alone and to be quiet mentally? One of the ways to do that is to use an analogy called stop. So I urge you now to do that. And effectively, all you're doing is closing your eyes, and you stop what you're doing. So if you find that you're in a very sort of anxious mode, you stop what you're doing, you take 3 deep breaths. So in through the nose. You try and fill your belly. And then 3 breaths. One more breath. The O is observing what's going on in your body, which is crucial. That allows you to feel. And then you proceed with kindness, joy, and love. That's all I need to say on the matter. So hopefully that gives you an idea of where I am kind of coming from as a kind of health coach or holistic health and lifestyle coach. Please let me know if you have any questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Dan. That was great. Again, just some great tips and some new things to think about. I love the I before we. Need a bit of work on that, I think. But really great to hear from you. Thank you very much. So I'll pass over now to Michelle.
Thank you, and thank you, Daniel, sharing the screen. So my name is Michelle Saunders. I work for Medway Council, but we're part of the Kent and Medway Workplace Wellbeing Award. The award and programme is a KCC and Medway Council funded initiative. So my particular area is Medway and Swale. I haven't yet got a person who started with the team, which will be covering Sevenoaks. We recruited last month, and the lady Helen is due to start just before Christmas. So in the very near future, Sevenoaks, Tunbridge Wells and Tunbridge will have their very own designated workplace health officer who will be there to support businesses with this particular project. The programme itself has been running in Medway for the last 2.5 years in its current form, and we've now joined with KCC to make this service available to all of Kent and Medway. If you wouldn't mind paging down for me, please, Daniel. So I'll just touch on some of the reasons why health and wellbeing is important in the workplace. Obviously, we've heard some great things this morning from Daniel and Dan, and that I, we and all is really what this is about. So looking after all of our staff members as individuals and encouraging them to look after the I themselves, which then leads to the healthy all. So that healthy all does have an impact on the workplace and on the business, which can then lead to a healthier all as a group and making society and the community that much better. As you can see from the screen, there's some quite stark statistics around the impact of poor health in work. So physically active staff have 27% fewer sick days than non-active staff. We heard earlier from Daniel how physically active people are less likely to suffer from depression or dementia, but the fact that you're physically active, your body is stronger, you're less likely to become susceptible to minor illnesses. Other things we've heard about alcohol. So alcohol is a factor in 20% of workplace accidents. And that's smoking. Smokers are 1.5 times more likely to take sick leave when they're compared with non-smokers, obviously where chests are weak and respiratory systems are affected. If you catch a cold or a chest infection, it's much likely to last longer. And in addition, there is some evidence around sort of people that look after themselves better are less likely to get ill. Obviously, we know all about stress. I think there's probably not one person in the world who hasn't experienced some sort of stress through the pandemic. These figures are a couple of years old. It'd be interesting to see what the costs are from this year, but 14.3 million working days lost due to anxiety and depression. That's a huge cost to the UK economy. I mean, we hear all about the economy and how much money Rishi Sunak is spending on supporting businesses, which is the right thing to do in such a crisis. I think the cost is ramping up, but these costs were in place before this pandemic, and these are big costs as well. So if we can help to address that stress and ill health in the workplace, we can improve businesses, we can improve the economy. So the annual cost of sickness in the UK stood at in 2017, sorry, £29 billion. I mean, it's really hard to imagine that number, but looking at some more local data, the average cost for a business in Kent and Medway is about £40,000 a year. If you think what you could do with £40,000 in your own business, I'm sure you could think of lots of investments you could make in terms of new equipment or innovative work that you could undertake. I mean, if I could have the next slide, please. So the benefits of being a healthy workplace. So being that healthy workplace can improve the health of your staff, both on an individual and on a sort of team level, can increase productivity. But the next point, the boost in morale and engagement, is probably the thing we see most from the evaluations we do with the businesses that we're working with. So the fact that staff feel connected to something, connected to a team, they feel engaged and taken care of, and there are initiatives to help them join in at team level and help them feel looked after. That's the thing that comes out the strongest. Being a healthy workplace can reduce your staff absence, which again saves you money on sick pay and on managing those other duties in terms of overtime or management time. And it also promotes you as an employer of choice. So by being accredited to the Kent and Medway programme as a healthy employer, there is that accreditation you get which recognises you as an employer that looks after your teams. And we've had a number of businesses have really picked up on that, especially if you're perhaps in the construction industry or you're tendering for work with bigger organisations. That's being asked more and more as part of the tender process as to what you do to look after your staff. And this sort of programme can help you to evidence that. The programme in Kent and Medway is completely free to join. All the core services through the programme are free, and we work alongside Daniel and his team at Seven Oaks and other Kent and Medway wide services. So the only real cost is sort of your time and effort into what you put into doing initiatives, and if you do choose to buy in other services from people like Dan at Health Tribe. But for every £1 you spend, the business benefits from £2 to £32 in a return on investment through the reasons above. So the things you get back will actually make that more than worthwhile. If I could have the next slide, please. So just as an overview, so we support all sizes and sectors of businesses in addressing health at work needs. And we work with you to identify what those needs are. In a small team, you probably have a very good idea from knowing your people and talking to them every day what that actually is. And we do have a free to use staff assessment, so a free survey that you can use, and then you get back a report which recommends the things you might want to look at. We used to quite often find in the early stages of the programme a business would want to do some excellent stuff around physical activity or stopping smoking, but if your staff are not yet in that place to make those steps, then there's some work to do before we get there. And there's a great value in asking your staff what they want from a health at work programme so that they can have that input, and if they get that say at the beginning, they're much more likely to make use of those initiatives. So work with your business to make sure you've got the basics in place to develop a healthy workplace, things like the right health and safety. Well, whilst we're not health and safety experts, we're just encouraging you to make sure they're in place, that the right policies are there, the right communication channels. You can't promote health and wellbeing without having good communication amongst your team and colleagues. And we're there to support the employer in making pledges that are right for the needs of your business and staff. So through your own staff survey or through what you know about your team or our staff assessment, we're there to help you make pledges to focus on those areas that you need to focus on. It's not, we can obviously come in and give best practice advice and recommend things, but you know your own team, you know how your business works. We're not there to change that in any way, but we're there to help you through what you've got in place already to get things in place and make those pledges that are right for your team and it's going to have the best impact on your workplace. And those pledges then form the base for a sort of a health and wellbeing action plan, which we then work with you on. If I could have the next slide, please. So the award itself, so we run the programme, and out of the programme the businesses get an award. So the business award is broken into these different levels. So the bronze is very much about making sure you've got the basics in place, you've done a needs assessment, senior managers are on board and so on. And then we work through 8 key topics, which are silver and gold levels. And the only difference between silver and gold is actually the number of pledges that you would fulfil, and I'll come on to that in a minute. And then the platinum level, that's going above and beyond your staff with continuous improvement. And it's about the all, as Dan said in his section, that taking it into the community, how you take it wider than just your staff. So you might take it into their families, or if you've got other clients, or you've got perhaps in a shared business building, you might support your sort of neighbours to participate in this sort of work. If I could have the next slide, please. So the bronze level, this is for businesses that show they've got the core building blocks in place to embed a healthy workplace. And actually that is most businesses. So it's really making sure you've got the basics in place. You've carried out a needs assessment either with us or on your own. Senior managers are on board. You have the right policies in place. Health and safety is covered with regular risk assessments and training. And also, this is not on the list, but the right environment in the workplace. It goes without saying really to make sure you've got adequate kitchen and toilet facilities, but there are places out there even now which maybe need a bit of advice on bringing those up to a suitable standard. And if we could have the next slide, please. So then silver and gold. So out of the themes, which I'll come on to in a minute, you do 15 pledges, which you choose yourself from a populated list for a silver award, and then 30 in total for gold. So it's very much flexible, shaped by what you need to focus on or what would work for your staff. If I could have the next slide, please. And these are the 8 themes of the award. So very much a public health and wellbeing focused award. So working with One New Kent. So we're looking at musculoskeletal health and screening. So with screening, we mean things like cancer screening, encouraging your staff to take up their NHS health checks, mental wellbeing and stress, stopping smoking, alcohol and substance misuse, healthy eating and healthy weight, physical activity and active travel. And then the other 2 sort of not such public health themes, managing absence and turnover. So working with your HR department or the HR area of your business to make sure that absence management is managed properly, that you do sort of check in with people when they return to work. Just it doesn't have to be anything onerous, but just to make sure they're well enough to be back and they don't need any support in returning to work. And also looking at perhaps why you can make pledges on why people will leave, and if you carry out an exit interview, is there a particular issue in a particular department where people are leaving? And then the 8th theme is environment and sustainability. There's a huge amount of evidence as to how the environment impacts our well-being, especially in terms of obviously green spaces and air quality, much a growing agenda, but also how our behaviours can impact the environment. So through things like recycling, actually that can give us that boost of giving under the 5 ways to wellbeing, to recycle and do something good for the world around us. So you choose your pledges out of those themes. As I said, 15 pledges in total for a silver award once you've done the bronze, and then 30 for gold. If I could have the next slide, please. And then the platinum award, that's taking it up to sort of a bit further. So businesses get platinum when they've successfully embedded health and wellbeing in their workplace. Already got the gold award. They can demonstrate they continuously improve in their offer to their staff. They're advocates for health and wellbeing at work, and they're influencing other businesses, perhaps doing things in the community. It's very flexible, the platinum award, and that's something that once you get to the gold level, we can approach and shape that for. There's obviously so many different types of industries and business out there. It's platinum can be fulfilled in lots of different ways. If I could have the next slide, please. So through the programme, whatever level of award you're working towards, there's lots of additional support. So we'll send out regular newsletters on current campaigns and events, subject to capacity. And obviously it's very difficult in the pandemic, but in ordinary times we would be coming out and with the One New Kent team and the Medway team, linking you up to have workplace health checks delivered in your workplace. And we also have a state-of-the-art health kiosk which can come out to your premises. People can take their blood pressure, body fat, height and weight, just give themselves like a mini health MOT. Unfortunately in the pandemic that's not in use because of sort of cleanliness and infection control, but once restrictions allow, that will be available to book for businesses doing the award again. And then again, working with the other sort of local Kent services, there's the stop smoking support that we can offer, physical activity challenges and sessions. And then we do lots of staff training. So we run mental health first aid and Connect 5 mental health training on a regular basis, which programme members can access. It is free of charge up to a certain sort of allocation. We also run training on alcohol awareness, healthy eating, sleep, different lunch and learn type workshops, which we can deliver within your organisation. We can offer support around wellbeing days if that's something you're offering. And if you're perhaps particularly a new business or a small business and you need some guidance on developing policies, we can also assist you with that, particularly in the areas of smoke-free or alcohol policies, stress and wellbeing. And even sometimes at Bronze Award, in fact, it's not on this list, but if you're very new and perhaps haven't had to write policies before because you haven't had the need for enough members of staff, we can assist you and link you up with sources where you can write your absence management policy and so on. If I could have the next slide, please. So how the process of signing up works, so you can either email us to express your interest, or you can register on the business portal. I can share the link to that in a moment. Once you've registered, we'd arrange an initial meeting with you, and we're carrying these all out via Zoom or Microsoft Teams at the moment. We just have a chat with you about your business, what areas of support you feel that you might need, and how you've come to this decision to start a workplace health journey. And then follow you up with additional information and start the Bronze Award. And to completely appreciate, some businesses need more help to get to that bronze level, and some are working above bronze level already. But we do all businesses do the Bronze Award for audit purposes and to make sure you've got the right things in place. But once you've done bronze, if you're doing a lot of workplace health initiatives already, you can fast track straight to gold if you've got enough things in place or can put enough things in place, or you can work through each level in a sort of systematic way. It's entirely up to you. It's very flexible and depends on where you're starting from, really. If I could have the next slide, please. So that's it. All that's it from me, really. That's the email address for the team. So if you are interested in finding out more, please do contact us. Or you can go onto the Medway Council website. So Medway Council hosts a programme for all of Kent and Medway. I'll type the web address in the chat in a moment, but it's medway.gov.uk/healthy workplace. Lots more information about the programme on there and the bits and pieces that you can get involved with. And once you are signed up to the programme, there's some additional pages on the website which are accessible to members only. You can download different resources such as how to implement healthy eating initiatives in your workplace, a guide to remote working if you've got lots of people working remotely, as we have at the moment. And things around financial well-being, musculoskeletal health, all different resources you can access as part of the programme, all for free. That's it from me. If you want to stop sharing the screen, Daniel, that would be great. Thank you for your help. Did anyone have any questions?
Paul.
Take myself off mute. That was a really interesting presentation. Thank you very much indeed. Just wanted to ask whether in fact that's aimed solely at businesses or also at charities, because I work, apart from the coaching I do, I also work for the Citizens Advice Bureau.
Oh yeah, so it's open to any workplace, Paul. So it doesn't matter if you're a charity in the third sector, if you're a private business, if you work in the public sector. If you're a workplace, you're more than welcome to join. And we even work with some organisations who have got sort of mixed teams. So you might have in a charity paid staff and volunteers, and we'll include everybody in the organisation as staff if they're working with you. So that's absolutely fine.
Lovely, thank you.
It does strike me, Michelle, that the programme is almost like a, come back to work, a sort of post-COVID recovery in a way, that, perhaps a lot of businesses who have perhaps furloughed employees might really benefit from something like this to kickstart, the well-being, the employees getting involved, feeling like they're loved and nurtured. And, do you think that that's sort of where this will go now as a kind of post-COVID?
I do think so. And I know KCC in particular, the councils have been including this as a resource within their COVID recovery business plan, so that businesses can access this support, as you say, to reintegrate furloughed staff. I think this whole pandemic's really thrown a spotlight on actually people's health does matter to employers. Perhaps in the past, employers have thought, oh, what they do in their own time is none of my business. But actually, it's shown us that if you are unhealthy, COVID's more likely to affect you. And equally, if we're mentally well and we've got that resilience within ourselves, we can cope in these situations that bit better. So having these programmes, I think, is more important now than ever. And it's certainly something which we have seen more recently as businesses do start to get back to work, asking for sort of support and advice. Our remote working guide, I can send a link around, or I can send a copy to you to distribute, which might be useful for the businesses to have a look at and get some tips and advice.
Right, thank you. I'd like to just throw out to everyone now, if you have any questions for Daniel, Dan or Michelle, if you'd like to unmute yourselves, if there are any questions or any comments from anyone, please come on in now. Anyone? No. So always that silence, not knowing whether somebody can't actually get themselves off mute before they can speak. But it's, you know, a lot for us all to think about today. Really useful points, and you know, I think, Catherine, we probably have a lot of blog material here to get out to our members. You know, some of the things that you've given us, you know, has been really great, and it's just good to see that there's so many resources available now for businesses to access, and for you, Dan, for, you know, that sort of focus on, you know, ourselves, which is really what this whole week is about looking at, you know, ourselves, looking at our people around us, how, you know, we all feel, how are we coping with the changes, and how are we able to, you know, be productive in our working days. So it's been a really insightful hour, I think we've been. I think we're just under the hour, so we've worked, you know, really well. Any final questions before we finish this session today? No? Brilliant. Well, thank you to all three guest panelists today, and thank you to Catherine for pulling it all together, and to everyone for listening. And we'll see you same time tomorrow, different subject tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Bye now.